Hey, welcome back. This is Jamie with Formidable Fabrications, and behind me is another tow truck bed. So this bed, so I wasn't excited to do another tow truck bed. I mean, the other one I did in the video turned out really nice. So I couldn't pass up the offer to build this because the part of the deal was the Ford F800 that I have with the Cummins engine that I'm using for the truck build. That was part of a trade on this, so I couldn't pass it up. The dude's paying for the materials. He's even slided me some extra cash, and he's giving me a truck. I can't turn that down, even though I don't really like doing the beds. But this bed, if you notice, there's no truck attached to it, so I can literally move this bed around however I want to weld it in the best position. So, which will be great. I can put it up like this, I can put it like this, I can even flip it upside down if I want to. So this is going to be a lot easier. So this bed isn't quite as bad as the other one. This one's been taken a little bit better care of, but we still have these issues. I don't know if you can see there's like lumps where all the pieces are, you can see them on the camera. So, and there's like rust holes in it. So this one's getting another diamond plate floor. We're doing a rail with the little insert pockets. Essentially just making it look pretty much the same. So he's already tried, I don't want to say tried, he already did fix the bed in a way. He took new pieces of steel and put them under. So there's like 6 pieces of steel that are already been replaced, and they're welded to the outer supports, but they're not welded inside at all anywhere, which is kind of crazy. So I got to figure out how to cut this. If you look in the other video, I literally just took the saw and just run lines and just cut the metal into like a grid pattern and just pulled it off. This one I got to be a little bit more careful. There is lights going through it, so I gotta make sure I don't mess up the wires. There's hydraulic hoses for the winch, and if I can reuse the pieces that are already here, I mean, I'm going to. So assuming they're not rusted too bad, I'm definitely going to use them. These are actually these pieces that he put in here. I don't know how good the camera picks it up. They're actually 2x4 steel. I got 2x3. 2x4 is a little overkill. But from what I gather, this is like 1/4 inch or 5/16 steel. So it's like super heavy duty. Probably a little bit more than what he needs for this, but I'm just going to use what I got. So the underside of it's actually in really nice shape. I think when I go to cut these old supports off down here, all I have to do is just kind of chop it and do a little grinding. If you remember the old bed, every piece was rusted, and the rust was like, it was welded so good around it that you literally had to just cut everything off. This one's not going to be near as bad. The other thing I will have to do is I'm going to have to cut this top diamond plate off and re-weld it into these. And what else? We're getting new pockets on here. Since I won't be able to reuse these because of the way they're welded on, I'm going to have to make new ones. And what else? The only other thing that I might mess with is this headache rack up here. He said not to touch it. He wasn't concerned about it, but I mean, there's like rust holes and stuff, so we'll see what happens. I'm kind of on a time crunch on this one, so we'll see. So I got all the steel ready. I just got to start cutting the bed apart, and then we'll be good to go. So we're back on day 2. Yesterday we got this whole section cut out, this front quarter. So today's goal will be to take care of this part up in here, get this out, and now that I kind of have an idea of how this was built, we can start cutting out the front end. I did notice as I was getting closer to the back that the whole thing was a little bit wobbly to that direction. Luckily I still have the hoist hooked up on this side, but that's going to have to get disconnected soon. So I'm just going to go ahead and take care of this part. The only thing I have to watch out for are the hydraulic hoses, and tucked up right underneath is the electrical connections. So especially up there where they're all piled up in the hydraulic motor. So luckily they're all below the lip of this I-beam, but still it's just something I gotta watch out for and make sure that none of them have come up and are sticking up or anything, which they all look pretty good. So let's get started. Okay, so we're back on the next day, and I have a string line set up on here, which goes from right inside here to right inside the angle up there. And what that's going to give me is the outermost point that the ribs can go to. So the new angle will go on the outside of here and over. So I already got this one lined up. We're doing 9" from the center of there to there, and then so on and so forth on the next one. So I still got a little bit of cleaning up to do on this side, and I still got to take this piece of angle off, but I'm going to wait till the end to take this one off. I already took off this one. Well, I'm working on it. I got the side, I'm just trying to get this top piece off. I'm trying not to mess up too much of this. So that's where we're at. I got a bunch of them cut already, and since they're a weird size, they're 100.5 inches. So that gives me 4.5 inches past 8 foot. And since these rectangle tubes come in 24-foot sections, I have a weird piece left that's like 7'4". So what I've been doing is cutting the remnants that I have, which I've been stacking over there. I cut the remnants and just put them there to 50 1/4. So I'll weld those two together and use them for a support maybe every so many, and especially non-essential places. So I can weld them together and then weld them on here, so I'm not wasting any steel. So that's the current progress. I just got to finish taking off this. I can't take that off yet until I get enough of these down here to figure out where they're going to land, because I want to keep this plate right here exactly in the same spot, because that's what holds up the hydraulic lines as they move back and forth. So with that said, I just got a little bit of cleaning up back here to do, and take those off, and then I just got to grind down these high spots where the old welds were as needed. I don't have to do them all, but since I'm doing every 9 inches and the originals were every 12, I don't have to grind off everything, but I do got to grind them off where they fall. So let's get back to work and start building this thing. Okay, so we're about halfway done putting in these ribs in here. These ribs are 9 inches apart instead of the original 12, which I think will be a little bit more sturdier. So when I measured out the diamond plate originally when I ordered the steel, I thought it was 1/8 inch, because what I was doing is I was measuring a piece that was up here and it looked like it was about 1/8 inch. Well, as I started cutting other sections, I realized that it was actually 3/16. So I had already ordered the steel and I can't take it back. So I originally planned to put these a little bit closer. I was going to do like 11 or 10 inches, but since I'm using 1/8 inch, I'm going to do 9 inch on center. So there's a 6 inch gap in here instead of the original 8 inch gap, which should hold up a lot better. So as what you see here is about a week's worth of work so far, even though the time lapse doesn't show it. It's just spending the time to get this kind of stuff off, because like I have to cut it and there's a weld underneath and a weld on top, so I got to cut the weld on top enough where I can bend it over and break the weld on the bottom. Same with this, there's a piece of the angle that goes across here that goes all the way down, so I got to do that. And then if you saw in the time lapse, I have my string line up here. So this side is going to be perfectly square, and then the other side, they're roughly somewhere between 1/8 and 1/4 inch longer, which is fine because once I lay the sheet steel down, the sheet steel will give me the line that I need. Then I can just run that circular saw right down and just cut all the pieces right to where they need to be. And then from there I can put the angle on top. So it's going to be this, the diamond plate, and then the angle that goes along the outside is going to be on top of everything. And then the customer also brought me this piece, which is the side rail that would normally fit in these holes. So since these holes are based upon a 12-inch on center support beams, these are 9-inch on center, so now I'm going to have to readjust that. Luckily that comes apart, as you can see, so if I have to cut it or lengthen it, it's not going to be a huge deal. So this where I'm at is kind of the important part. I don't know if you noticed in the time lapse, but there's a bar here that I kept and a little piece there. I kept that for reference. So this piece right here is stationary to this part of the bed. This part of the bed is what slides back and forth, and these hoses have to get a lot of extra hose. So when the bed slides back and forth, there's plenty of extra hose that runs the winch up there. And this plate is what holds the hose to the sliding portion. That plate is what holds the portion to the bed. So everything has to be able to move. But this has to be in the exact spot, so when the hose goes back and forth, it doesn't stretch it or it doesn't kink it. So it was originally held up with self-tappers, and that's what I put back in it. It seems to me, so these hoses are held up with like a hydraulic hose clamp on the bottom, which seems to me if you ever need to move anything, you just undo the bolt and drop everything. But I guess maybe for some reason, if you have to move the plate, maybe if you get longer hoses, I don't know. And you're probably wondering why I'm not cutting this off as well when I redo the bed. Well, there's two reasons why. So I found that when they build these beds from the factory, I think they build them upside down and then put everything together. So they would build the frame. Then they would put those on, and then they'd put the bed on top, and then they would flip it over and weld the diamond plate to those pieces. But for this back here, I think once they flip it upside down, then they start building everything up on it. So what I found when I tore the last one apart, which was a huge mistake, I found that the support beams that are here are welded to this, but they weren't welded to the underside of it. So it leads me to believe that it was done backwards. So in lieu of making that mess again, I'm just going to cut it there, rebuild this section, since this section is actually in really good shape, like really good shape. And there's a ton of support back here, so there's actually no bends in it. There's no rust holes. So I just wanted to interject that just to kind of show you where we were on the bed build. So I know you've been watching the time lapse and you might be wondering what I'm doing as I'm doing it, but that's kind of the methodology that I'm using on this. So let's get back to work and get this thing built. Okay, so I'm at a point now where I got the metal on here, but before I can put the metal on here, I got to put the banjo eyes for the chain holders in the middle of the bed, like here and here. So instead of buying them, I'm going to make them. So I kind of drew up a picture. I know it looks interestingly weird. So this distance from, the distance from here to here is 9/16. Center of this hole to the center of this arc is 2.5, which is going to have to be a little bit smaller. And this is supposed to be a round hole. I didn't draw it that well, but the round hole is 1 3/4. So it kind of looks like a double-ended banjo eye. I don't know what you were thinking. But that's what I got to make. So I got to make 2 of those, and essentially they're going to fit like in here. They'll be touching, and they'll be welded onto it. And then when I put the sheet on top, I'll cut the sheet out around it and then weld around it so that plate's exposed. There will be a 3x5 angle on top, so I need to come in 3 inches, and then the plate will be in this area. So I'll go in my small stockpile. This is my small pile of metal, like cuts and oddball pieces that I save for stuff like this. So I got plenty of 3/8, which I might end up having to use. I see a piece in here. I just got to figure out how to get it. Perfect. All right, so this piece is 3 3/4, which will be fine. The biggest area that I need in this is going to be 1 3/4. So 1 3/4 will be plenty of room. Okay, so I just need to cut this. So I'm gonna cut this piece essentially to fit right in between, so it'll fit nicely in there. What I'll do is once I get this piece cut to the right length and get all the holes drilled and get everything cut, then I'll put a piece of flat bar that goes from here to here, clamp it, and then clamp this to the flat bar. So this is going to be flush with this, so the metal will lay right over top of it, and then I can weld the plate right in here, and this will be recessed in just like the original. So let's make some measurements and get to cutting, and I'll show you how I make custom banjo eyes for tow trucks. It's actually very simple. I don't have a CNC machine, so I just got to make it the old-fashioned way, which still works really well. So let's get some stuff and get going. All right, so I'll get those cut, then I'll make a mark. Just like that. That's pretty square anyway. All right, so that gives me a total of just shy of 6 inches. So if you do the math on this, 2.5 and 2.5 is 5, plus 9/16 would be 5 and 9/16. So that would make this, that would bring this thing all the way out to here, not to here. We can't do that. So we're going to do this a different way. Okay, so I got this and this. So what we're going to do is we're going to find the center point. So I'm at just shy of 6 inches. So I'll just go with 6 to be safe side. So we're at 5 inches. Okay. Just make a mark. And that's 3 3/4. Which would be 1 1/4, 1 7/8. All right, so this is going to be the center point of the big circle. And then we got to have 2 9/16 holes. So actually, you know what we'll do? We'll just take this line, since this is going to be the center point for everything, and run that through. Okay, so this is the center point. And now we need to make the actual banjo eyes, where the parts that the chain slides into. This part. And let's see, so we'll say we make it here. That'll give me about a, I don't know, 1/2 inch, 3/4 inch to weld. So let's put that arc here. Measure this out. Let's see how far we are. To about, yeah, 1/2 inch. Okay. So we'll do, take this. All right, if you notice, I'm not using the end of the tape measure to put on here because the tape measure does move for a specific reason. So it's easier if I line up, say like the 2, line that mark up, and then I can use one of the marks on the 2 side, as long as I remember that I'm at the 2-inch mark. So same with this. I put the 2-inch mark on the end, measure out a 1/2 inch. So, and this is going to be 9/16. So we'll say this is the arc, which puts, we'll just take a random guess. Center point will be about here and about here. So this, essentially this will look like this. It'll come down to this big circle and it'll continue over here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drill out this hole with a hole saw, drill out, put a hole here with a 9/16 bit, do one over here, which will leave me with 3 holes, and then I'll take my angle grinder with a cut wheel and I'll cut this and this, which will give me this slot, and then this and this, which will give me this slot, and then I'll have a custom banjo eye that will be perfect, and all I gotta do is make one for here and one for the other side. So let me get this piece cut right here, and then we'll go over to the drill press and start drilling these 3 holes out. We'll bring it back, put it in the vise, cut out these 4 cuts, and then we'll have a custom banjo eye. So I made the banjo eyes for the bed. So if you do notice, there's like these little marks where the angle grinder got those. So that'll happen because the blade is round and kind of cut in a square hole. So I found a really easy way to deal with those and make it look like nothing ever happened. Look at that. Looks perfect. Just flip it upside down. Looks good as new. So what we got to do is we got to find the center point in the bed approximately, and then weld these into one of the things. So let's measure real quick. So the 10-foot mark is right where I'm standing. And the 10-foot mark is right here. So let's, 10 foot here, 10 foot here. Let's just put it right here. Right next to this. Okay, so you can see we got the floor in, and I got this rail in. So I got it welded here, and I got it welded up there. And I got little spot welds all down here. So what I was doing is I was taking this angle and clamping it to the diamond plate here by squishing the support that went this way, squishing them together. So I got the slots cut in for the rail, and if you can see down there, there's like a little bolt hole for the bolt that goes through that tightens them up. So, and then I also got the 3/4 inch holes that will house the lights, and there's the end cap on that one. So currently I am working to get this one done. So once I get this side welded up, the bed is done. So the only problem I have right now is the electronics. I have to figure out which side is the ground and which side is the power. Being that these are LEDs, it's very important that you know which is which. So I'm gonna have to probe the wire underneath and see if I can figure out where the ground wire is. Pretty much everything else is done. All the seams are welded, all the supports are in, they're nice and square. I did notice when I was building this that there is a slight bow in the bed. It could be because there's no support right here holding it up, but I think the bed is just naturally bowed like that from the years of usage, and the beams underneath are slightly bowed like that too. So I don't think I'll be able to actually get that out with new supports. So with that said, there's the bed. Those rails I had to manipulate a little bit to fit in the slots properly, and I'll have to do the same with these. But once I do that, pretty much this thing is done. So let's get back to work. Oh, the garage is empty again, thank God. So it's been, so the bed was in a, so the bed was in here for about 3 weeks or so, and it took up all the space in my garage. I'm happy to get it out. So if you stuck around for the video this far, I truly appreciate it. Please like and subscribe. I'll have more content like this as time goes on. In the meantime, a couple things I'd like to clarify. I know there was some parts of the video where it kind of jumped around a little bit. That was because that week we were having really high temperatures and the heat index was really high. And if you saw on my shirt a couple times, I noticed when I was editing the video that my shirt was like completely saturated. So on average, I was going through about 3 shirts a day, just to give you an idea. And I don't do heat very well, not at all actually. So it was super awful. So some days I just didn't even bother to film because it was just too uncomfortable. And I was literally just coming out here for like an hour or two just to get something done because I was honestly bored of sitting inside doing nothing. So the bed is done and the customer is super happy, and it was a super clean build. Fairly easy overall, just very tedious and time consuming. I particularly don't like doing these just because of that. They're very cumbersome and hard to deal with. But like I said in the video, it was for a trade for part of this Loadstar build, which by the way, the video will be coming out soon. There's a couple little things that I have to finish on the current part 3 that I'm working on. Just some things just to wrap it up and get it done. I feel like if I put the video out now, it just won't feel like it has good closure for the next part. So I'm already working on part 4, which is a whole chassis thing going on with it. So yeah, it's just a lot of parts going on. I even sent some of the body panels to paint, so that'll be showing up too. If you follow my Instagram account, you'll see stuff as it progresses in real time versus in YouTube time, where it takes a few weeks and hours of editing to make the video. So please like, subscribe. If you enjoy the content, by all means, leave me a comment if you have any questions about the jobs. I'll always be happy to answer them. I constantly check my comments and I try and answer everybody as fast as I can. So thank you, and I'll catch you on the next one.